Welcome back to another Construct video, and in this video we're going to recreate Rocket League. Let's get started. So starting off with a brand new Construct page today, all we need to do is click anywhere, click Project Properties, and we're going to make note of our viewport size. I'm actually just going to copy and paste this, click anywhere once again, take the size of our layout, and Control V. This means that we're actually working inside our camera for the whole part, so there'll be no moving the camera around as the player goes off the screen. Everything will be on one page. Next we need to start putting in our objects. So our first object we're going to do is just insert a new object, and we'll start with our background first. So this is going to be the football pitch itself. Click anywhere, and you can resize your layout to be the size of the camera and now the layout, which is 854 by 480. Just make sure you've ticked off keep aspect ratio off. If not, it will change both of them as you change one. Hit OK, and now this is your space to draw your level. Alternatively, you can import one. So here's mine that I've imported, and just make sure again it is the right size. You can resize it here. Once you've done that, hit the X and place it in the level. That's our first step done. What I recommend with your background is also just right click, go to lock and lock selection. Now I can't accidentally click on it as I move other objects around. Next we're going to add our two cars. So we're going to go down again to sprite, and we're just going to call this car 1, and we'll also make car number 2. So car 1, click anywhere, and again you can draw your cars or you can import them in. And when you import your cars, there's two important things to remember. First of all, your car must face the right, so if it's not, you can just rotate it, and that goes with both your cars. And secondly is the image point. So the image point is just here, and you need to make sure your image point is center. Now to work this out, just go on to resize, take the width, divide it by 2, which will give you your X. Do the height, divide by 2, which will give you your height. Once you've done that, you can hit the X. Now this car is far too big, so I'm just going to take the time to resize it, holding shift as I resize, and just place it roughly where I want it to be. Next we need to do the same but for car number 2. So insert new object, scroll down, this is going to be car 2, click anywhere, and again I'm just going to import an image, and then I'm just going to make sure that the image point matches up with the size, clicking on resize and just dividing these by 2, and making sure that my car's facing right. As for the size, we can resize it down. However, I'm going to take the size of the red car. I'm going to copy and paste, click on the yellow car, and I'm going to copy and paste the size in. This means that they should be the exact same size, so there's no advantage for choosing either left or right side. Finally, I'm just going to take the angle and rotate 180. That's half our sprites in, but we've still got 2 more to go. Next we need to add our ball, so I'm going to insert new object, scroll down to sprite, and we're going to call this ball. As always, you can draw your own, but I'll import one. And just like we did before, we just need to make sure that the image point is the exact center. So again, just click resize, 250 divided by 2, 250 divided by 2, 125 each side. Click X, and again, just scale this ball down to be a size that you're happy with. I also recommend just placing it next to your car. That'll give you a better idea if it's the right size or not. So for me, I'm happy with that size. I'm going to place it in the center of the field. Our final object then is actually just some walls. So down to sprite once more, click wall, click anywhere, and I'm actually going to just create a wall design really quickly. So for this one, I'm just going to take a simple gray color, grab in my square tool, fill in the top bit, and then I'm going to make it black for the bottom bit, and just hit the X, and then I can resize this to be the size that I want. And now we just need to put this all the way around our level. Now when you get to the goals, make sure that you leave a gap in the wall so we can actually score a goal. But apart from that, you can put walls anywhere. You can even put walls at a slight angle if you want an angle on the corner. And with our walls finally in, if we hit play, this is what our game is going to look like. Now what we need to do is actually program this to work, so we're able to move both cars, we're able to hit the ball, and we also want some sort of scoring system. So let's get started first with the behaviors. Now when you add the behaviors, I recommend that you add them on the project side, as we need to add quite a few to each object. We'll start really simple with the wool. We're just going to edit behaviors, add one behavior, and we're actually going to add the physics behavior. Now when you add the physics behavior, make sure you click on wool again, and just make sure you click on this immovable. This means the wools will always stay in place no matter what hits it. Next, we'll move on to the ball. We're going to edit behaviors, we're going to add a new behavior, and just like we did before, we're just going to add the physics behavior. This time we've got some different properties that we want to change. First of all, the collision mask is going to be a circle. The density will keep at 1. Then we've got some options that you might want to change yourself. Starting off with friction. Now the main concern for this is if it hits a wall, how much speed will it lose? Currently it's set to 0.5, so it will lose half its speed every time it hits a wall, but you can play around this number if you want to change this in a different way. Elasticity means how bouncy the object will be when it hits an object such as a wall. So again, if you want it to bounce off a wall, and I recommend making this a little bit higher than it is, such as 0.6, how much will it move by? Linear dampening is how much will it slow down over time. If it's set to 0, it will not. So what we want to do is make sure that it does slow down over time. I'll start with 0.5, but again, play around with these settings. You might want your ball to slow down quicker or slower. And then angular dampening is how slow it turns down its rotation over time. I would just put this to 0.1, but again, you can play around. Most importantly, we need to tick on the bullet option at the bottom. This basically means that if you've got an object that moves really, really fast, it does extra calculations to make sure that it's still in the bounds. If we don't have this, there's a good chance it will go through a wall or go through the car. Finally, we move on to the cars, and we'll do these both one behavior at a time for each car. So starting off with both the cars, they need the physics behavior, just like all the other objects. However, we need some slightly different properties for our car. So I'm just going to click on car number 1. Immovable, we need to make sure it's unticked. Collision mask, use collision polygon or bounding box, either of those are fine. Front rotation, we can actually leave that unticked for now. Density is one of the biggest ones. We need to set this to 1000. All the others we don't need to do too much of a change for. However, I do recommend changing the linear dampening to 1. This again is how quickly the car slows down over time. We want this to be controlled by a different behavior, not the physics behavior. Also the angular dampening, you might want to update to 1 or 0.5. Again, it shouldn't be rotating with the code that we're using, but if it does, we don't want it to rotate for too long. Finally, I would tick on the bullet behavior, so when it interacts with the ball that's moving quite quick, we can do those calculations much easier and much faster. So there's less likely of a chance that the ball's going to clip through the car or clip through a wall. We then just need to repeat that same settings again for our other car. So again, first of all, right click, edit behaviors and add the physics behavior. And then again, we'll just go through and change the same settings. So density is going to be 1000. Our linear dampening is going to be 1. I believe we set this to 0.5. I'm going to tick on the bullet behavior. That's the first one done for our cars, but we need 2 more for our cars. The other 2, however, are a little bit more simple. So next we're going to add in the car behavior. This lets us move like a car. So starting off with the red car, I'm going to go down, and the only thing we're going to change is the max speed. I recommend making this 200, if not it's a bit too fast. However, you can play around with stuff like the acceleration, the deacceleration, how quickly you can steer. Drift recover, so higher values mean you can do tighter turns, low ones mean you slide around a bit more, and then friction as well on the ground. Turn to I stopped, again, that one's up to you. Can you turn around while I stopped? I always leave that off because I don't think it's very realistic. Set angles, absolutely fine, but for the red car, we're going to turn off default controls, because we're actually going to control the red car using W, A, S, and D, and not the default controls, which will be the arrow keys. Again, we're just going to go over to car number 2, add a new behavior. We're just going to repeat the same thing again. So I'm going to go to the car behavior now, hit off the X, and the only thing that I changed was the max speed to be 200, but again, you can choose which ones of these to change. Default controls, we're actually going to leave on for the yellow car, as we do want it to move with the arrow keys. Our final behavior then that we're going to add, which we don't need to make any changes to, is just the bound layout. This means if your car goes into the goal, it won't go any further, unlike our ball, which will go out of bounds and then it will score a goal for the right team. Again, I just need to make sure that I'm adding the same behavior onto car number 2, so just bound layout. And that is it. All our behaviors are in place. So we need to start programming. We'll start off by programming our left car to work. So to do this, we're just going to insert a new object and scroll down until we find our keyboard. Next, we can move over to our event sheet and add our events. So we're going to start with keyboard. Key is down, and we're going to do W, press OK, done. Add new action, car 1, scroll down. I'm going to do simulate control. Now this lets us choose one of the actions that the car behavior gives us and actually bind it to a key instead. So we're going to bind W to accelerate, and then we can just click on the side here, copy and paste, and just make the changes. So instead of W, we're going to do A. Instead of accelerate, we're going to steer left. And then we can repeat for the other direction as well. So instead of W this time, we'll click D. Instead of accelerate again, we'll steer right. And then finally, we'll do down to be our deacceleration. This means now you can move both cars using either W, A, and D, or using the arrow keys, depending if you want to control the red car or the yellow car. Next, we're going to make our ball move. And the first problem that we've got is if we hit play and we see our level playing, you can see that the ball is going to drop down, just like we would see in a platform game. It also does the same thing for our cars. So there's a quick and easy fix for this. We're just going to add a new event, system, scroll down till you see the word on start of layout. We're then going to click on any object that's got the physics behavior, but we'll do it for the ball in this case. And there's this option to set the world gravity. We're going to set this to 0, which means now none of our objects will fall, but we can still use the properties of the physics behavior to hit the object and move it in different ways. So let's start by getting our red car to hit the ball, because then we can just swap it over for the yellow car. So car 1, on collision with another object, and we'll select our ball. We're then going to add an action. We're going to go to our ball, and we're looking for this option that says apply force at angle. And this is probably the most trickiest part of all our code today. So in terms of our force, we're going to take car 1 dot. We're then going to look into the car behavior, hit dot again, and then we're going to do speed. So we're hitting it with the speed of the car. Now we also should take in consideration the ball dot, and then physics behavior dot velocity, and we need to check this on the X and Y. Now this is not perfect code by any means. This is still a little bit buggy, but it's good enough. So if you can think of a better way of doing this, please let me know. But for now, this is good enough, so we'll go for this method. We're also going to add the velocity for the y-axis. So again, ball.physicsBehavior.velocity y. And then just put all the ball physics in a bracket. And I find that this is a bit too fast. So what I just do is divide all those numbers by 5. If you want it to be faster, change the divide number to be smaller. If you want it to be even slower, make the divide number bigger. As for the angle, this is a really useful function to learn inside of Construct. You can actually work out the angle between two positions or two objects by using the angle function. And this takes in 4 parameters. So the first one would be and this takes in 4 parameters. So the first one would be car1.x, comma, car1.y, comma, ball1.x, and ball.y. Not with the 1, sorry. And there's our angle worked out. And then we can just hit done. In order to repeat this for car 2, we don't need to actually write any more code out. We can just copy and paste, right click, replace object, and replace any mention of car 1 with car 2. And this will change everything over for us. So now we've got most of the backbone of our game done. So we can see now when I move and I hit the ball, it gets knocked in and the ball goes off the screen. You can also see that the cars do have some interaction with each other and comparison to each other. It's not amazing, but it is some minor interaction that we can do when we hit each other. Now we need to work on actually the goal system and actually displaying text so we know who's winning, who's losing. So we're going to go back to our layout for this. We're going to insert a new object, and we'll start by doing just a basic scoring system first of all. So we need text for this, and we're just going to write score. Click anywhere, and we're going to position our text box so it's centered at the top. And we're just going to scroll down, and the first thing I'm going to do is change the origin. Instead of being top left, we're going to make it center. And again, just reline it after that. With text boxes, the image point or the origin point is always set in the top left. However, I always like to change it to be centered, just Just makes it easier when you're working on a symmetrical project like this. We're also going to change the horizontal alignment to be center as well, and the vertical alignment to be center. Next, we're going to write a basic score, 0, 0. And then we can choose to change the size or the font if we want. I'm just going to make the size a bit bigger, but you can mess about with fonts and place it roughly where you want it to be. And place it a little bit higher. Next, we just need to go to our event sheet, and we're going to insert a new global variable. Now, to get global variables, just right click anywhere in a blank space, hit global variable, and we need 2 scores to keep track of, red score and yellow score, or player 1, player 2, depending on how you want to write this. So I've just copy and pasted that and just do yellow score and hit OK. Now we can create new objects and check if the ball overlaps them to increase the score. However, there's a much easier method that involves a lot less objects. We're just going to add a new event. We're going to take the ball and we're just going to compare its X position. Now, for any reason, if this goes less than 0, because we've got the walls around the edge, the only way that can do that is if it goes into the left goal. Then we can actually add a point to the right team. I'm just going to check what the right team is. So that'll be a point to yellow if it goes in the red side. So I'm just going to go system, add 2, and then yellow score by 1. We can then copy and paste this code. And this time we need to check if it is greater than or equal to. And this time we're going to take the layout width. So if it goes greater in the layout width, it must have scored in the other side. So red has scored a point. Next, we're going to use a very cheaty method to actually update the score, and we're just going to use every tick. If you want to really optimize your game, and again, we don't need to for a small game like this, but if you're making a large game, you would only change the score when someone scored and on start of layout when the game started again. So for this, we're just going to go to score, scroll down, set text, and we're going to start with red, who's on the left side, plus, and then speech marks, and it's not plus, sorry, it's and, because we're in construct, speech marks, space, little dash, and then speech marks again, and then yellow score. So if you've not used the ands before, it basically just says I want to take the red score, and I want to just take whatever I put in the speech marks, in case this hyphen, and then and the yellow score as well, add that together. We should be able to now score points. So I move yellow out the way, red hits in, and the score goes up. However, the score's gone up a little bit too much. So we just need to make one small change. Currently we're checking anytime the ball is less than 0, and every time it does that, add 1 to yellow score every tick. I'm just going to add a new condition, system, scroll down, and we're going to do trigger once while true. This means this will only happen once now. The other thing is our game doesn't reset. So all we're going to do is add an action, system, I'm going to scroll down, we're going to do wait, and we're just going to wait about 3 seconds before we restart, so you've got time to actually take in that goal, relax before the next round starts, and then we're just going to add one more action, scroll down, and restart layout. Now I'm just going to take both of these commands and just paste them on this side as well, and before we do our final test on this, we should have a nice message that pops up to let them know who has scored as well. So for this, I'm just going to insert a new text box, scroll down, grab text, and I'm just going to write go, click anywhere. Again, I'm just going to go down to my settings, origin, center, vertical and vertical alignment to center as well. Place it there, and then I'm going to change my text. I'm just going to write goal for now. I'm going to make this nice and big as well, 40, and I'm going to make initially invisible off. Then I'm just going to resize this so it takes up all the space across the screen. That way I can write much bigger messages on and put it roughly in the center. Going back to my event sheet, then I'm going to add an action. It's going to be on goal, scroll down, set text, and for this first one, red scored, and just remember to close your string with some speech marks. And oh, that's on the wrong one, so I'm going to place it just there, copy and paste, and do the same again, and just put yellow scored. And then finally, we actually need to make this goal appear and disappear. So actually the disappearing is really easy, because when we restart layout, it will disappear because it's set to initially invisible off. However, we do want it to appear. So I'm just going to go to goal, and then there should be an option to set visible, and I always can never remember what that is. There it is, set visible, and we're just going to place it here, and then just do the same on the opposite side as well. So now when you score, we're going to add 1 point to the correct score. We're going to say who scored. We're going to make sure people can see that text message, wait 3 seconds, restart, and then begin again. And that is everything that we need to do to get our Rocket League to work. However, I have added some other little bits into my own version. So first of all, for the score, I've added a version of the cards. Now these have got no behaviors on, and it just tells you who is which team. I've also added in some controls in the top corner as well, and I've added just a slight slant on these corners. Now they're actually not impacting the game whatsoever, it's just for decoration. Final thing I've done is just put a red line and a yellow line just to help you keep track of whose goals are who. But that is it for today. I'm going to put my version on the arcade if you just want to have a go at playing it. There'll also be the code in the description if you want to play around with my code. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.